Ladies and gentlemen, if you're the average person living in the West African sub-region of Nigeria, the West African sub-region of Nigeria, and you are the Southeast region, some of us will call it the South-South, some of us call it Southeast, Niger Delta, whatever it is, you are the most manipulated person on the face of the earth. If you don't know, here are your threats. One is Sharia law, which is looming in the north. All the northern states are Sharia states now. And they are, right now as we speak, thinking about how they can change your state into a Sharia state. How they could come into your state to rule over you using Sharia law. Two, Britain. Great Britain, that you know, if you see a white man, you get so excited because he's white and you think that he's so magnificent. Well, Great Britain is not your friend. And for years, their mechanizations and their working behind the scenes has affected your life. And if you watch my subsequent videos or my previous videos, you'll discover that this is what has happened. That Great Britain has been the worst thing that has ever happened to you in the era of your existence. Three, the Fulani hegemony. The Fulanis, they are not many. The Fulanis are not even, when you look into it, 1/4 of the population of Akwa Ibom State. In fact, the Fulanis are so few, they are not one population of the quarter of Bayelsa State, where they rule the whole country. They are the 0.1% that I was talking about that takes billions of dollars out of the country and put in foreign banks. People have always had this illusion, this myth, that the Fulani are mumu, that they're stupid. No, they're brilliant people. Because when you look at their number and how they've kept Nigeria at where it is till today, it is an amazing thing. They are very, very crafty. And if you've gone into the history of the Fulani, this is what they've done in other countries. Unfortunately for us, we didn't figure it out in time. In places like Ghana, Ghanaians figured it out and killed them, literally, killed them in line. Make sure that they don't ever get involved in the politics of the land anymore. In other countries, they push the Northerners back, and because they know these guys, there's something about them when it comes to the intrigue of rulership. They know how to, they're crafty, very, very crafty people. They are not as many as 1/4 of the population of Bayelsa or Rivers, but they'll rule the whole country, and you guys cannot move. You cannot progress. You cannot do anything with your lives. And I say that it is your responsibility to deal with that. You're saying, well, I'll just live under it and see how tomorrow will be. No, they've spoiled everything to the point that at this stage, there's going to be no remedy for what is about to happen to the zoo. Okay? Now, let's go into my topic. Okay? Because I was trying to give you a prelude into what I want to talk about, which is the responsibility for your life is in your hands now. This is the most crucial time in the history of anybody living in the southeastern region of Nigeria, in the West African sub-region. It's the most crucial time for you. You know why? Your decisions will determine what will happen to you, your family, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren when you're long gone. If you decide to remain with the zoo, you'll pay dearly for what is about to happen. If you decide to get out of the zoo, you will be redeemed. You'll be redeemed in ways that you cannot believe it. Now, people will ask the next question. They'll say, okay, what is he talking about? What is this guy? What is this guy running his mouth like this? Now, you see as this guy, they shout at us. What do you mean now? What is this guy saying? Well, let me explain to you. So let's begin. Terrorism. Let's start with terrorism first. Did you believe that you were living in a country? Let's look at the scenario of what happened to the country you were living in. You were living in a country where one day a guy got up and said, let's make Boko Haram. Let's create Boko Haram. We invest some money and create something that will kill lots of Nigerians, that will cause terror in the land, and that the United States and the other global powers will come in a rush to come and bring in aid for us to fight that terrorism, and we'll pocket that money. We'll pocket that money. And that to make this business very, very lucrative, Nigerian soldiers will have the horror of sitting in trenches watching helicopters that belong to the Nigerian Air Force flying over their head to drop arms in the Sambisa forest for the Boko Haram and flying back of their own military. And that the few Nigerian soldiers who knew what was up and said they're not going to the front to go and fight that kind of a stupid war were held down as being members of a mutiny and were condemned to be executed. Can you believe that you are living in a kangaroo zoo of a country like that? A country where they sponsor terrorism, so that the money that will come out of it from foreign aid, from global politics, they will pocket it in their money and put it in their bank account. That is the terrorism, the impunity of the Zoo Republic, and you are living in there. Now, you may say, well, dude, it's an old story. Well, no, there's a part 2 of that story. They need a terrorism apparatus to make the name of Allah and the Islamic cause of the North to radiate out there in the ether. And for that to happen, Boko Haram now has failed, because guess what? Chad, in one of the strangest twists of fate, got involved. And so Boko Haram has been killed en masse, slaughtered. But unfortunately for us, the elements in the Nigerian Senate, in Aso Rock, and other places who were sponsors of Boko Haram are still alive, walking freely in the society. Now, some of them have died based on COVID-19. God has punished them, and they've died, and they died horrible deaths. But the situation is, the threat is still there. So there is a phase 2 that can come up, in which the terrorism will not be anymore about the bad second son who killed members of his family. Because what happened here was Boko Haram was not meant to turn on themselves. They turned on the Islamic people. It was created during the time of Jonathan Goodluck, and it was meant to harm him and to hurt him, and at the same time create money for the elites of the Fulani hegemony and the northern elites. But it became like the bad son, second son, who goes back home to go and slap his father and beat his mother. It turned on the people. It turned on the people because they themselves started making a lot of money from kidnapping and all kinds of things. So it became a kind of Frankenstein. You created the monster, and the monster came back to your house to come and kill you. It became Frankenstein. So, but in the end of the story, when it became Frankenstein like that, they now discovered that even the foreign countries like United States and other places discovered that Nigeria is a scam. Everybody now knew the Chibok girls was a scam. Chibok girls was the biggest scam in history. Just to attract foreign people. Do you know how much money people made from Chibok girls? Set the Chibok girls free, make t-shirt, make pen. Set Chibok free. Chibok are suffering in a suitcase. Everything, Chibok. They made a lot of money from it, to the detriment of people's daughters. Some of those girls have not been seen alive anymore till this day. Some of those girls will never ever be returned back to their family anymore. They were raped systematically in the Sambisa forest. So terrorism of Boko Haram has brought about untold hardship upon people. But in the end, those who pocketed the money that they made from terrorism business are still walking about freely in Nigeria, calling themselves loyal Nigerians. The zoo is a place where this kind of business is supposed to be brilliant. Even the president you have has been accused of pocketing that kind of money. For those of you who are so attached to the zoo and cannot detach, Nigeria doesn't have a president. The zoo doesn't have a president, nor does it have a vice president. If you think it's not, you know what? You guys sometimes, remember my last video about social conditioning? You're so conditioned that nonsense now is sense to you. Nonsense has become sense. Where is your vice president? Which country do you see in the world where the vice president may not be seen and there is silence and nothing is said about it? Which country do you see that kind of a thing happening? Which country in the world do you see a country where the president is constantly flying between his country and London? He's constantly flying between London. You guys have been so socially conditioned to nonsense that you now accept it as common sense. Nonsense, that's crap of the highest order. You now say this is normal. Leave our president. Like, Sai Baba, leave our president alone. But here's the thing. In the end of the story, do you also know that this very country that you're living in, the security of your life is at the same level of the security of the nearest chicken that just passed by you? Yeah, those of you who are so attached to the zoo, you swear by the zoo. The security of your life is not different from that chicken that just passed by. It's not very different. The chicken maybe even may have a greater chance at surviving than you. Why? Because the so-called people that you think are your leaders have invested in your possible death, which is terrorism. So there'll be a phase 2. And they have tried several times to integrate themselves into the southeastern sector. They want to come in. They want to come in. You know, they use cows as an excuse, which shouldn't be an excuse for someone to try and come into your place. But that in the final analysis of all this, one day you guys will wake up and will be right smack middle of a jihad. And as far as I'm concerned, for the love I have in my heart, I pray it does never happen to you. Because if that thing happens, it's going to be one of the most horrific things we've ever seen. There are those northerners that are there. We know very well from our own top secret thing. There's a lot of arms buried now in the floor of the southeastern region of Nigeria. Arm depots on the ground. A lot of arms are buried there for the day of reckoning between you guys and the north. And most of those military cantonments or those military barracks or those military installations, they have switched over the battalions in such a way that the battalions that are there are loyal to the north. That is why when I see people saying, oh, we're going to have... No. The day they call on jihad, you will be surprised that even the military barracks, it will be a jihad assisted by the military. And it will lead to death. It will lead to the kind of bloodshed we've never seen in our lives before. But you see, here's another story, because when we now discovered that Boko Haram and terrorism, some of the bombings we had and some of the things that happened was being sponsored by Turkey, then we now understood that there's another dimension to it, which is the dimension that, let us say, and I'm now giving you, because remember I say I always want us to think, to calculate, not to just follow things blindly. Let us say the North took over the South finally. Till you guys surrendered and became a full Muslim nation. That nation will become a hub of terrorism, global terrorism. That is why the Republic of Biafra is dedicated to saving your life in the southeastern region, plus saving the rest of the world. Because Nigeria, and I'm going to get to that other stage of the point, that Nigeria is going to become like a bad version of Somalia, where at some point, because of poverty, because of hard terrorism run amok. I'm sorry, guys. I think you have a little cut. Someone is trying to call me. I don't know why. That's the funniest thing that happens to me. Whenever I start a video, people start trying to call me like they want me to talk to them inside the video. I don't know why they do that. So, let's flow. Let's flow. Number one, it started with terrorism. Some people in the North felt that they had brain, that they were very, very wise. And so they wanted to introduce the ultra version of Sharia, plus they wanted to punish the southeastern region and instill fear. And so they invested in terrorism. They used their own money to invest in terrorism. And the resulting profit was what the foreign countries came with innocence in their hearts, thinking it was true. They didn't know it was manufactured. And they came and brought money in dollars, billions, and it was pocketed, including by the present president you have now. He was involved in that money. And then we had the horror of Nigerian soldiers watching Nigerian Air Force planes pass over their head to drop weapons for the terrorists to kill them. And that when soldiers saw this and now said, you know what, we don't even want to go to that war front and fight, they were called mutineers. That they're creating a coup. They created a mutiny and were killed. That is the kind of kangaroo place that you lay your allegiance to. But that is not over. Even though Chad came in and destroyed that system, you know, Chad, which is such a shame. We couldn't solve it, but Chad are the guys who went and solved it. Now there's going to be a stage two. The stage two is how could they make the whole of Nigeria Sharia? Now, if they can make the whole of Nigeria Sharia, I also promise you that with the events of what COVID-19 has done, and with the fact that oil is now dead, Nigeria will become a hub for terrorism. So when you say you support Biafra, you are supporting one, saving your loved ones, saving your children, saving your grandchildren, saving your in-laws with your belief system from being massacred by the oncoming efforts by a group of people whose brains are not larger than the size of an alligator, because the alligator's brain is said to be the size of a walnut. Hence why it's always attacking and eating. It has no other brain. It has no other calculations to make. As mighty as an alligator is, this brain is the size of a walnut. So therefore, the alligator has no time to reason with you. It's going to try and kill you. That's all. The brain is so small that it has just a section for eating and attacking. That's all. Cognitive behavior, cognitive reasoning is zero in an alligator. And that is the kind of brains you have in northern aspect of Nigeria. It has to be Sharia. And it has to be that they take all the money. That's all they know. We take all the money of Nigeria. Like now, NNPC is completely broke and empty. The president, your kangaroo president, emptied NNPC. In fact, he made it a family affair, took his daughter and made her part of the board of NNPC, took all his friends, made it. The whole NNPC became a nothing affair, and then it was broke. Akpabio went in and discovered that $22.8 billion US dollars was emptied from the NNPC coffers. Okay? 22.8 billion US dollars was empty. NNPC is broke. And what was the thought of the guys with the size, the brain, the size of a walnut? That oil would still be the same price it was. Well, guess what? Oil fell. Oil is dead. Oil, if you've heard the story, if you know what is going on now, oil is dead. Now, with oil being dead, what do I mean by oil is dead? It's $20 a barrel. Fell down to 17 yesterday, Seth. I mean, real bad situations. Then when Nigeria goes into paying for their shipping, trying to pay for refining, trying to pay for the overhead costs, when everything is said and done, Nigeria's profit is $2 a barrel. So it's dead. It's dead. Now, last year, Nigeria borrowed 3.312 trillion naira from the IMF, and it was scheduled to be paid. I'm trying to show you the terrorism and the loans, because remember the title is Terrorism, Loans, and Impunity. Impunity is that people who sponsored Boko Haram have the impunity to walk about freely in Aso Rock. They walk about freely in the north. They walk about freely in that country. No fear. No fear. No fear. And they are angry when you don't call them honorable, when you don't call them my excellency and stuff, including the president of Nigeria. He's a sponsor of terrorism. And he took that money, he pocketed that money that came from foreign countries in millions of dollars to pay for the fight against terrorism. He pocketed that money too. Now, okay, you see, Ifeanyi Okoye is now saying it's less, it fell some more. It's less than $2 a barrel now for oil. If you know what is happening, they say Port Harcourt is dead. If you hear what is happening, oil is dead. Now, in a world where oil is dead, okay, you don't even have the oil to pay. You went and collected a loan, 3.31 trillion, 3.312 trillion, something like that. And you scheduled to pay it off in the year 2025, which you won't be able to pay it off. Now, I don't know if you remember, we have taken the IMF loan at least a good 3 times before today. For each time we took the IMF loan and defaulted on it, there was a time Naira to the dollar was like 2 to 1. It was 2 Naira to a dollar. We defaulted. The next thing you heard, there was a time we were starting to say it's 15. It's 20 Naira to a dollar, so. Then we defaulted. The next thing you heard is 100 and something. There's penalties whenever you default on a loan, you know. That's one thing they never tell the Nigerian people. There's penalties for defaulting on loans. Yeah. So the same guys who are sponsoring terrorism, I want to show you how they chop money rich. They'll collect money from terrorism help. That is, they sponsor the terrorism so that America and Europe and everybody can hear. And then when they send the millions to help, they pocket it. Then they ask for loans and they pocket half and release half to the Nigerian society. Then they go around emptying the coffers of Nigeria, like the sovereign accounts, empty, to the point that the British Prime Minister said that Nigeria is fantastically corrupt. He has never, that even the money, it's just like the money for the country, the main bank account of the country, Nigerians empty. Who are the people doing this? It's not people from Akwa Ibom. It's not people from Rivers State. It's not people from Edo State. It is not people from Bayelsa. I can also tell you that the Igbos are not seeing that money. It is the Fulani hegemony. Terrorism. Terrorism. Then loans. That is all that has been happening in the last 5 years of the zoo.